Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Bonga Dada Bonga. Bonga Dada Bonga Dada Bonga Dada Bonga Dada. Welcome to our third episode. I'm so excited. I can't believe we are up to our third episode. Woo! And we're talking to Kenyan women in politics, just trying to figure out what is going on ahead of the Kenya August elections this year. We've had three fabulous shows with really some amazing guests telling us what women who throw their hat in the ring to do politics go through. In the studio today, we have some wonderful ladies who have so many accomplishments, and I'm just curious, like after you've done so much in life, like why would you step out and say, hey, I now want to ingia the ring of politics? Like, how do you get there? And I'm curious to hear from them. Tell us, all those details. But before I go there, I am pleased to introduce my co-host, Susan. Susan Muriungi. Welcome to the show. Thank you for co-hosting with me today. I think we're going to have a great discussion, don't you? Oh dear, I think Susan may
I'm
be
looking
frozen.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it, Achieng.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to talk a little bit about yourself, Susan, or should do you want me to introduce you? I think you should talk about yourself a little bit. Tell us.
It's very
You have so
difficult
many
talking about.
accomplishments. Yes.
No, thanks, Achieng. It's good to be on the show. It's difficult to talk about myself, but just to be very brief, I'm working in the NGO sector in Kenya with an organization called Protection International Africa that works with human rights defenders. And we particularly look out for women human rights defenders. What we do with them is we help build their capacities to manage their security as human rights defenders, recognizing that human rights defenders, and particularly women human rights defenders, are exposed to lots of risks and threats. But before that, I have worked in the NGO field. I have worked in academia. I have a long time ago worked in corporate sector. I have a bachelor's degree in economics and sociology from the University of Nairobi, and a master's degree in international relations from the University of Nairobi, and a master's degree from King's College, London, in conflict security and development. I'm
Mhm.
also a mother and a wife to three children and one man.
Oh, wow. I told you we have a very accomplished panel with us today. Thank you so much, Susan, for joining this show with us also. But before I introduce our lovely guests today, I'd like to tell you a little bit about this show and where it started from. So, I was on Queen Mother Speaks, which is another online show that happens. Please check it out. It's an amazing show. Facebook, Queen Mother, facebook.com/Queen Mother Speaks. And it's a show about, about everything, I think. But this particular month, it was Women's Month, and Professor King invited me to her show to talk about Kenyan women in politics and, ahead of the elections, what's happening. And we had this conversation, about our elections, what happens with women during elections. And women in the show were listening and they were like, what can we do? How can we help? Where can we go? In order to be able to do something about the situation in Kenya. And so Bonga Dada Bonga was born this way. I can't say it as well as Queen Mother does. She always brings her flair to the show. We're just talking about, how she felt touched to start this show when she reached out to me, and I was like, yeah, let's do something. Let's actually make a space, by women, for women, about women, where we can talk about our Kenyan women in politics in a run up to the August election. What are women doing? What are their hopes and aspirations for Kenya? What are the challenges they are facing? Why should you vote Adada? Why? Why? Because people keep saying, oh, uh, we're wasting money with having, special seats for women. They should just compete normally. But why is it important to have women in leadership and in representational politics? And that's what we're here to speak about today. And on my panel, I have Edna Arati. Edna Arati is a lawyer, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and a managing partner of Arati and a managing partner, yes, of Arati and Company Advocates. She's an international human rights and gender expert. She knows her stuff, and she's a certified mediator and a member of the National Committee on Criminal Justice Reforms. She's also on the ICC Council list. Wakili, you are there? Not just at Kenya level, but Ukomaju, you're also representing. Um, and she is also she brought her many accomplishments in a bid to serve Kenya in a political capacity as MC of Kilimani. And we shall be hearing more from Edna, but I'd just like her to come and say hello to everybody. Say hello to our viewers.
Hello, viewers. Thanks for joining us. Good evening.
Good evening. Also on our show tonight, we have Caroline Lukalo. Caroline is a creative manager and an operations specialist with comprehensive knowledge in business techniques, methods, principles, as well as outstanding expertise in diverse business functions, including marketing and business, development, Pan African talent management, market research, and optimization of day-to-day activities. So she also threw in her hat. And I want to know why, Caroline. Why would an expert marketer and creatives, why? Why would you take it? Why is it necessary to take your agenda to the corridors of power? Maybe, but for now, say hi. Tell us about you, Caroline.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for taking time to spend time with us. And I'm hopeful that everything we say or anything we say and do can be of benefit to people out there. From the get-go, I'm saying, please. I know there is some apathy, but please show up and vote. People actually died for us to have this right, this privilege. So please honor them and show up and vote.
So, Carol, that question remains: why? You're in creatives, Mama. You're doing those, getting people to looking for talent. Why was it necessary to throw in your hat and say, I must serve my country? What dreams did you have for this country of ours, Kenya?
Okay. I first stood in 2007. Motivated because in 2006, when Kibaki was president, and there are very many good things he did, we were in the office, and as with some colleagues, we worked in dairy development, and we watched the demolitions of kiosks and the total lack of humanity with which the demolitions and evictions occurred literally broke us. Because we said, from those kiosks, from those micro businesses, we got our lawyers, we got our teachers, we got our doctors, we got our engineers. So these were not people who were not interested in working for the country or raising children. And the total lack of humanity with which their businesses and their livelihoods was destroyed was heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. And as we stood from our offices looking down, there was about 7 of us, and every one of us had a different way that it could have been done. And so we talked about it, and we said, so is it really that hard? Why is it that people cannot have empathy for, why as Kenyans do we not have empathy for each other? There should have been another way. And my colleagues turned around to me and said, you should do something about it. So I said, no, the government, they said, we don't want to hear about government. We're saying you, Caroline Lukalo, should do something about it.
Right.
The same year, we had a program where we brought American basketball players out to Kenya to work with student athletes and get them to appreciate that by virtue of being athletes and people come to watch them, they're leaders. So use your leadership position to positively impact community. In this case, it was around issues of HIV, AIDS, and nutrition. And so they held various camps, but we landed up in Kawangware, which is part of Dagoretti North, the constituency I seek to represent. And at the time, there's been some improvement, but at the time, the filth, the open sewers, the stench, they noticed some kids didn't have shoes. They took some money and started buying shoes. And then kids from the entire area got word and came. So all the money they intended to spend on buying souvenirs for family and friends, they landed up buying shoes for kids,
Wow.
and sweets and cookies, and started trying to understand. And, I'm not very tall. You can imagine American basketball players, they actually surrounded me and were pointing, at me. And they were like, Caroline, you need to do something about this. And I said the same thing. Oh, the government. They said, no, we don't want to know about government. We want to know and see what you, Caroline, are going to do about it. So at that point, I thought, well, maybe it is going to take people like us, professionals, Edna's there as well, but people who actually have done other things, and you can bring to bear your knowledge, your experience, and everything else from there, and actually say, okay, fine, what can I do outside of me and, unplanned good deeds, but is there a way that we can contribute in terms of policy, in terms of legislation, so that impact can be felt across a much larger community?
Indeed.
So that's how I'm here.
Yeah. If not you, then who? Edna, was that the same for you? Was it also another if not you, then who situation? Or how did you get here? What gave you the courage to throw your hat in that ring and just say, come on in,
Exactly.
man?
I can't agree more to what Karen has just said. I remember what inspired me more when I was in university. Actually, we just come out of campus when we were doing this like odd jobs, waiting to go to the School of Law, and we got this 2002. There was election, and I remember at that time Charity Ngilu vied to be president, and we had gone to do the research. We are doing for like InfoTrack, I think one of the the research companies, and I asked to be sent to my rural area where I come from in Kisii. While I was there and I was doing this research, and I realized that, we have never had a woman representative. Not really. We have only had since independence. We had only had one lady who was the MP from Kisii for the longest time.
Actually,
Yeah.
we had another MCA aspirant from Kisii just at the last show, and she's like, I had to go and look at the MCA list, and I think there was one woman in Kisii County.
Exactly. And when we were asking, we were doing the polls, and what I could get from men was like, because Charity Ngilu was actually the only female candidate then, and what I could get from men was so discouraging, because chauvinism was really spelling itself on the face, saying, why should we vote for a woman? I mean, she belongs in the kitchen. And I remember people saying that, some of the people that were interviewing were saying like, we only need a hat, not headscarf. Like, simple, like a headscarf cannot rule us. It was quite sad to hear that. And of course, it was sad, it was discouraging, but again, it inspired me, because when I looked at it critically, I was like, we need to grow out of this. And what inspires me, like the speech for Martin Luther King said, that he was the famous speech for Martin Luther King on emancipation. He was delivering the blacks from the emancipation. To me, I feel like this is our time. We need to, it's our time for emancipation of women to higher levels. Where Kenya is today, actually where we are placed in Africa, we are one of the top countries in Africa, and of course top in East Africa. We are perceived to be a developing, actually we are approaching the developed world. But then when you come to our leadership, we realize that we still are really behind in terms of, looking at, how leadership should be in terms of gender. When you look at the way FIDA, human rights organizations, Law Society of Kenya has been filing petitions after petitions, where even the CJ was gave an order to declare Parliament, to dissolve Parliament for refusing to uphold the rule of law when it comes to the two-thirds gender. But still, you can realize that even the president could not adhere to this. And here we are today, as we speak. Even recently, as you saw in the news, someone has gone to stop IBC from forcing political parties to adhere to the two-thirds gender rule. So you realize that we still have a long way to go. And yet, we as women can do much more than that. And that speaks a lot about our leadership in this country today. We need leaders who are not politicians, but leaders for the people. Because when we elect someone up there, whether it's a man or a woman, it should be there for the interests of the people, not selfish interests. And again, it's not the gender, but an individual. But we realize that us as women, we have been spectators of leadership. We are spectating. And yet, we are the drivers of this economy.
Imagine.
We have able women. We have women who are educated. We have women who have the capacity, not educated, but they have the capacity to lead. But then they have not been given this chance. But here we are. We have very many women who have put their names on the ballot, just like me and Carol and the rest. But then you see, like, the struggle still continues.
And
Even
very
when
very qualified women. I mean, I was reading your CVs and I was like, wow. There's also a perception that people have that about women politicians, but we have such professional, very eloquent women who are throwing their hats in and braving this political
Yes.
arena.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Achieng, okay, sorry. Yeah, Achieng, I agree with you. There is a perception, but at the same time, I think the ground is very difficult for women aspirants. Just considering the many challenges that face us as women, even when you're not running for any election, but in such a difficult circumstance as this as well, it must be very difficult for a woman. But Edna, and congratulations to you ladies for having the confidence to be doing this thing which many, not just women, but men as well would not be confident to be doing,
no.
Kudos to you.
Yeah, so we really wish you well in the path. And this being your opportunity to speak, perhaps you could just enlighten us, maybe see your agenda a little bit. You've talked about what made you get into politics, but perhaps you could tell those listening to you, just let us know what are you looking forward to? What do you want your people to gain from your leadership? What are your dreams? What is in your manifesto? This is your opportunity to sell your manifesto, Edna.
To me, I have this, can I say, slogan, like, if it ignites you within you, if it ignites you from within, then do it. If it's because it ignites you from within. My leadership, as the leadership I aspire to bring to Kilimani is that one of inclusivity. This is a place where I stay. This is a place where I raise my children. This is a place that I have, that is deep inside my heart, that I want to see grow in terms of inclusion. When I vied, this is my second time, for your information, that I'm vying in Kilimani. Uh, I have had so many women come out to me, not only women, but even the youth. They say that we have been in Kilimani for the longest, but we feel left out. Yes, Kilimani is actually the constitution, sorry, the ward in Nairobi that hosts even the biggest. Okay, can I say like Kilimani hosts the State House. Kilimani hosts the best university in East Africa. Kilimani hosts most of the, like, where this is where we have um you know the elitist staying, but so many things are going on in this ward that are core in this city. But then you realize that what is going on here does not even reflect what Kilimani ought to be. So there's lack of inclusion. We also have slums in Kilimani as well, where people in Kilimani live in Kilimani, they are living in abject poverty, and people do not know that. We have women and youth who are really suffering, and they're within Kilimani. And yet, this is where we can tap into rich resources that are surrounding us and can benefit all of us. You understand? Like we are hosting a host of international organizations in Kilimani, but then we are not making use of them to our advantage.
That is true.
Uh, we have leadership that is really lacking in inclusion. We have
Mm,
so many resources that can be used for the interest of the common good in Kilimani.
mm,
This is where we have the biggest number of foreigners in this city.
mm.
But the locals who are here are not utilizing that resource, which would benefit us as the people of Kilimani. Of
Yeah.
course, when I get into leadership in this space, I want to have women, especially, and the youth, to benefit in the Women Enterprise Fund.
Mm,
Youth Enterprise Fund and women fund that is there, because most of the women that are telling us we want to do business, we want to do ABC, but then we cannot access funds. The
yeah.
leader, the leadership that is here has not acknowledged us. I mean, being an MC is not only about giving bursaries,
Yes.
education bursaries. That is given. Even every constituency is given bursaries, but there's much more than that. Because
Mm,
when you give a woman as a shilling to go and multiply in terms of business, you fed a family. You know,
mm,
you've she goes and multiplies it.
mm,
Because we need women to access. We have so many women who are seated around the streets. Maybe
yes.
if you happen to come to Kilimani, we have women standing or seated on the road waiting to wash clothes for people, and that's all they can do. But you
Mm,
can imagine if we started an organization, which organization, there's an organization we started somewhere in Kilelesho, but
mm,
some of the women in Kilimani are benefiting. But if we start an organization that can train these women and they become valuable they get some skills
yeah.
and they become valuable. And this, you can use the resources, we can tap into the resources of NGOs that are here. We can
Mm,
access, which I'm still actually is something that is a project that I've started, it's ongoing. But
mm,
given that power and leadership, I could do much more and assist these women to access uh,
mm,
to get some education, not only education, even simple skills, just simple skills that they can use in this simple
mm,
task that they're using. And of course, register them into an organization
yeah.
that can, they're registered and they can be able to access and,
Mm,
make themselves better than just sitting on the road or begging
yes.
to get simple jobs. They can gain skills that can help them better. I have
Yeah.
youths who always asking for money on the roadside. They're like, oh, we need
Yeah.
to do this. We have car washes here. All they need is just financial support. And in
Yeah.
this way, I ask them all the time that you need to organize yourselves in groups. When you come in groups,
Mm,
it's easier to assist, you see?
mm,
And
yeah.
all they need is just to be given some machines. and they do they organize themselves. They
Yeah.
only need some little kind of funding. So that is
Yeah.
what a leader, I can say, in such a place can do. And that's what I intend to do, to support
Yeah.
groups
Yeah.
to come up with projects that can help them as groups, because that way then you help a larger group, as opposed to someone coming for handouts from you, or I have school fees, I can't afford this, I can't afford, I have a sick child.
Yes.
I look
Yeah.
at even women, we suffer, we have situations like
Yeah.
maternal health issues.
Yeah.
All we need
I
is to
keep,
work
I
with
keep,
some groups that can help women wholesomely as groups, as
I keep saying
projects.
that. Yeah.
That's
All
what
right.
I look at it.
I keep saying that
Thank you.
I pay twice. I pay tax like 3 times. I pay as you earn. I pay that. Then I support all my family with to access all the social services that they were supposed to be accessing from that tax money. So I'm taxed 3 4 times.
Yeah.
And Susan, you'll allow me to declare my interest here. I grew up in Kilimani, so I'm very interested. I mean, I really like to hear Edna's plans for Kilimani, and for Carol. You're the one I'm going to vote for now. I have no choice. But I'd also love to hear what you have. I vote in Dagoretti North, so that's my constituency. So for sure, I'm voting for you. But I want to hear what I'm voting for.
Okay, thanks again. Yeah, so Kilimani does fall within Dagoretti North constituency, and Edna is very right. Within Dagoretti North, you have citizen number one as a resident, as in the president, but then you also have people who, like, today, you go to different parts of the constituency, but primarily the Kawangware area, Kabiro, Kawangware and Gatina. And you have people who have not eaten for 2 days, 3 days. And the impact of not being able to eat, for example, when you're HIV positive, means you cannot take your ARVs. So even though they're not telling you exactly why they're sick today, you start, connecting the dots and seeing what the challenges are. So what is my manifesto, as it were, agenda? Number one is an example. So I tell people all the time, if you are not seeing people like you, and I'm not talking about ethnicity or language or religion, I'm talking about your principles, your ethics, your values, your priorities, and you're voting for these people, don't be surprised when they're not able to deliver what you want, because they're not like you. That's not their interest. And the reality is most of us have more in common. So when I stand, it's partly because I want other people to understand it is people like you, who are people like me, who need to stand. And if I can be brave enough, little 5 foot tall, puny me, so can you, right? The second thing I'm doing in campaigning is encouraging young people to stand. Kibaki was what, 26, 27 when he was Minister of Finance? Moi was in his
Really?
30s when he was vice president. So this myth that you should wait your turn, you stop and think, gee, was not even 35 when he was crucified, and look what was created. Martin Luther was what, 39. So what are you waiting for? And if you're waiting for the people who messed up things to come back and fix things, you must be mad. You must be absolutely crazy. So you young people, can you also start getting organized and start standing for yourselves? In fact, for this past week, I've been talking to young people and telling them, to a certain extent, this election is already over. You should now be working on the next election. You should now be using the people you meet and your connections to actually organize, so that you can be organized and strategize and plan and have your candidates on the ballot, whether they have money or not, at the next election. In terms of who I am, I believe in integrated communities. Just because I don't have a lot of money is no justification for me not being able to have access healthcare. Is not a justification for my kids not being able to finish school. There are certain things that have to be sorted, implemented, and corrected, so that access to healthcare, access to education is not a privilege. It is, and we've got to remove that mentality that there should be suffering so that the country does well, because it is from the children being educated, it is from the community being able to access healthcare, that the country as a whole will do well. So my two priority areas, I could say, would be healthcare, access to healthcare, and access to education. With clarity that the job is affecting policy, affecting legislation, and then looking at implementation and how to strengthen implementation. So for example, with healthcare, we have to get the public clinics working. We have to get the public hospitals working, and we have to drive down costs. You should not have to sell your house to stay alive. You should not, subject your kids to poverty because they have to sell the only asset they have, which could be the land, because you fell ill and died. The only thing that's left is, a quarter acre somewhere that could help them survive and do well, but then they have to sell it to bury you. Just does not make any sort of sense. I remember when we first started hearing about Ebola, and I used to just watch, it's coming from Congo, and I used to just look, because in my head I was thinking, even with COVID, we're lucky, we dodged a bullet, but with our health system as it is, if one of these funny diseases shows up, we're cooked. All of us. Not people in Kawangware, not people.
No.
We are all cooked.
We're in there together.
Yeah. And then also looking at, it is not just curative healthcare, it's also preventative healthcare. So the infrastructure around sewage systems, access to clean water, and what have you, nutrition, perhaps rolling back and going back to more traditional foods that have proven value suited to our genetic makeup. So actually looking at things like that and putting research behind that. And then education. Like I said, at the beginning of this term, the average parent taking their child to Form 1 was looking for 30,000 shillings in addition to school fees. Who has that? So is education in Kenya about building private sector, whether it is a private school, or is it the publishers of books, or is it the school uniform makers, or what is, that's completely wrong. That is completely wrong. So we have to make sure that all kids can access, all young ones can access appropriate education, whether you call it CBC, 844, Rumpelstiltskin, the Hadithi za Abunwasi, it doesn't really matter. The question is, what are you teaching and how are you teaching it? and along with that, late last year, I hosted a science day in Riruta, where the idea we're going to have more science days, but it's to demystify science. So to get young ones to understand that you don't have to be really, really brainy to do science, that if you're alive, you're doing science. Are you breathing?
I think we lost Caroline there. Are you?
We had some vets.
Okay.
And after the session, when I was getting feedback, they said they had Form 4 students, young girls, who had been interested who, having been exposed to the vets, would have been interested in a career in veterinary science. However, they had dropped biology already. So there was no recourse for them, which says we're doing two things. We're making young ones make decisions that affect their entire life far too early and without adequate information. So again, what I'm saying there is when you look at a situation like that, then you have to start thinking, so is it a policy issue? Or is it a legislation issue? Or is it an implementation? Or is it all three? And what are we then going to do? So back to what Edna was talking about, is it's things that can exist, but it's also using the office to maybe run pilots, such as a science day, and then using that to now affect legislation, to maybe run health clinics or something like that, and then using that, to actually use the office and whatever resources and organizations that you can access to actually run a pilot, run a test, sense check things, and then go back and say, do we need to strengthen legislation? Do we need to remove legislation? Do we need to improve? Or is it just completely new legislation or policy that needs to be affected? So recap, just basically those two areas. I think that, if you're talking about healthcare and you're talking about nutrition, then you're talking about agriculture. If you're talking about healthcare, you're talking about infrastructure. So yes, I might say it's only two areas, but there's going to be impact
quite a bit
in a lot of other areas, right?
Different areas.
Right.
Wow.
Thank you, Caroline, and thank you, Edna, as well. Really interesting listening to you and the passion with which you speak. It's very inspiring. But of course, you must be, already going out and speaking to your potential voters, and you're getting certain responses, positive and negative, perhaps. That's normal in a campaign trail. What would you say are the experiences, and especially being a woman, what experiences are you going through? Do you feel that it's different for you being a woman, or do you feel that a man is going through the same experiences as you? Maybe you could share this with us briefly.
Who do you want to go first?
The floor is open, as we say.
Go ahead, Edna. Go ahead, Edna.
Okay. As a republic, I thought we had really grown, and since we want to emulate the ideas of the democracies that are already developed. Now, my experience in Kilimani has been different, and you expect that a place like Kilimani is like so upmarket, but you do not expect what you find like in 2022. Now, the nomination events were characterized with the lowest of actions that we expect. Like it dropped to the lowest level. Because even in this year we experienced deaths, destruction of property, and
Wow.
personally, what I experienced, especially, let me talk about the nomination day. There was a lot of violence, like violence, even robbery with violence within within the polling centers, at the
Oh, wow.
glaring eyes of the security officers watching. I was really shocked. And even throughout my campaigns, I experienced a lot of discrimination, gender discrimination, insults, and physical attacks. At some point, if you follow me online, you could see like even my banners were torn. This is Kilimani. We're
Oh,
talking about upmarket. I had banners that were torn,
you're
and
joking.
then
Kilimani. Wow.
in Kilimani, yes. I put it on my wall and I was asking, like, is this happening in this day? And you know, uh, my banners were torn down. Insults, even to date, as late as this morning, I saw some lady insulting me, and I was like, maybe I kept quiet because I was like, I do not want to exchange, but you expect such a lady to be on your part, and because that is I believe in transformative leadership, especially in the incoming government, because we are evolving as a republic, we are
Yeah.
evolving as a democracy, as a society. I do not expect this, but unfortunately this is going on right now and this time, because we even have right now, I have a case in court that's going on. I might not want to delve into it, but yes, I experienced all those. Even when I sit people down and explain, and I've been running a very sober campaign on my part, very sober, very issue oriented campaign. I was not running dirty politics because I don't believe in that. And yes, you realize that there were people sent. Even when I was going, I went to Kawangware, because like votes for Kilimani, you go all the way. They call them diaspora votes, all the way to Kawangware. And I was running a very sober campaign and had I had a motorcade going all the way. But I was sent for goons to attack me. You know,
What?
yes, such that I had to
Yeah.
hire security to work with me. And this is Nairobi we're talking about. Like, this is Nairobi, the capital city. And it's very unfortunate that
Yeah. The last one of our last uh, guests
episode.
in the show also said that she had been hired for goons. And when she went to report to the police, they told her, but why didn't you hire your own goons to counter those ones? And I was quite shocked. So I'm just as shocked to hear that it happens even in Nairobi.
it's very unfortunate that that is the truth. Uh, and you know, I look at this is Kilimani, and this is not even a slum where this was happening in Kilimani, where we had people attacked in classrooms, in polling centers. It was Lavington Primary School, captured on camera. And you can imagine what is happening in the rural areas for women. Because I've had cases where even women aspirants are being raped. I heard of situations like that in 2022. So, so what I urge people is like we need to elect leaders that we can trust with leadership. We don't need leaders who are politicians and know nothing about leadership, because when you're offering leadership, you need to be an all-rounded person. You protect human life. You need to fight for protection of human life, because you people have trusted you with leadership, and they trust you with their lives. Because when you're going to parliament, when you're going to the assembly, you are going to come up with legislation and policies that are affecting your people. But if you are the same person who is suppressing people or even using the youth to fight, but this youth will face criminal offenses. And you, as a leader, are you going to be on the dock with them? No, you will take off. But
Yeah.
this youth who has been used, if the worst case scenario, this youth has been arrested, they will not be with you. They will be carrying their own cross. I don't think there's
Exactly.
any of those leaders who will come and say, okay, it's me who used him. I paid him 1,000 bob to go and fight. And
Do you,
so,
yeah.
you know, they
Do
wouldn't.
you, maybe
So,
I'll ask even as Caroline comes in to tell us if her experiences are similar. But is it because we have this culture of impunity when it comes to electoral violence, or is I don't know what is with this violence, especially against women? Is it tumezoea? What is that about? I don't get it.
Okay, so like I said, the first time I stood was in 2007, and that time things were bad. I mean, I had a gun pulled out on me twice, having a meeting, and someone charges in and chases people out and stabs them, and people jumping on my car, and there was all sorts of stuff. I
what?
didn't stand in 2013. Oh, yes, I didn't stand in 2013, but I did stand in 2017 last time. Now, for me, what happened was, when I decided that I was going to be a representative, I said I'm going to make connections. So very many of the people I met for the first time in 2005, some of them have become family friends. Were very good friends of my late mother. You know, they would show up and pick up stories with her and what have you. Because of that, even when I go to the ground now, you know, there are people I know, whether it's in the market or what have you. So there's a level of familiarity, I guess you could say. In 2017, there was a lot of violence, but it tended to be between the two main male candidates. To the extent that the OCS, the police, the security organs actually just called them and said, get a control of your people, because that's where the problem is. It's not with the other candidates, it's with you two people. So far, this year it has not been bad. But to answer your question about why does it seem to be so accepted, you know, let's be honest with ourselves. Women are treated badly in Kenya. Kenyans don't like women, to the extent that sometimes even getting support from women can become a problem. You know, I watched young girls in town, and I feel so bad. It must be terrifying, you know, you're walking and
Walking, yeah.
boys are just grabbing you, men are just grabbing you, and it's horrible. It's horrible. You know, when someone once, a man, I saw it on Twitter, put it there. He said, it must be horrible to be a Kenyan woman. You're not safe on the border. You're not safe in the taxi. You're not safe walking. You're not safe in your house. You're not safe in your car. You're not safe in your house. Where are you safe? So to me, this is just an extension of it. From people who are trying to, it's not even really to prevent women, it is just so that you can remain in control of the woman, so that even when she is in office, even if she is in authority, that you're kind of like, you be a good girl, you will do what we say. So I think the reality is we just need to look at it honestly and realistically, which is there's just there is a problem with violence, whether it is verbal, physical, whatever it is, against women and even young girls. Even the stories you read in the paper, they're heartbreaking about 6-year-old, 8-year-old. It's that's what it is. So I just think that that is somehow how we've been socialized, and it maybe gains more attention during elections or something of the sort. But the reality is, even today, something has happened to a woman in Kenya, something has happened to a young girl in Kenya, and it has been swept under the rug, or it has been ignored. It will not be dealt with. And again, these are the things, for Edna in her MCA role, whether it is bylaws or what can be done, at a smaller level, and for myself, really taking a hard look at it. I mean, and this one would have to start with policy, because we might have policy in writing, but what is in the hearts and minds is not a true reflection of what actually needs to be done. So there is work to be done around gender-based violence, violence against young people, violence against children.
Yeah. I mean, you're right in terms of it is. Oh, yes, please, Edna, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to add exactly what she's said. I want to add something small. I mean, I'm glad that we are really making that small, albeit slow, progress that we are making. She's right by saying that women are not safe anywhere in this country. It's unfortunate, though. My experience is that even I was desperate. I remember I was desperate on the election day, calling Kilimani police station, Mudangari, any police I got to know. I was calling them, literally begging them to help, because this is as soon as it's getting out of hand. There was a lady who was molested, beaten out of the polling center, and she was a presiding officer, and they were calling her Malaya wewe toka press unakuja kuiba kura hapa. And this is a presiding officer. So I imagine I had just left that polling center and stepped out to a different polling, because me as an aspirant, you have to go around the polling center, see how things are. I had just left that center. But I imagine it could have been, because ideally they were looking for me. It could have been me. And that girl today, she's traumatized, because I followed up with her, and she was extremely traumatized after what happened, because they were full-grown men abusing, beating her out. They took her phone, they beat her up, and it was a terrible experience. So, as Carol says, our society has been accustomed to assume that can I tell you, sadly, so that maybe I may not need to want to talk about this case, but a police officer wrote a report saying that this woman deserved, it's like she was the author of her own mistake.
No.
The report had to be returned to the police station for him to rectify. How can you, as a police officer who's supposed to offer security, say this? It's like going to the court and as a police officer and say this girl who has been raped deserves to be raped, and maybe this is a 2-3-year-old girl who has been raped, where they have no control of their life, they have no strength to control. And now, albeit the constitution giving us that freedom, that power to be on the ballot, we are still being fought out of it. Like you literally, it's being taken away from it, from your hands. The political parties are supposed to protect us and see how extra mile they can go to help the women aspirants. This is what I'm saying. Because it's not that now that we have not asked for it, we have gone for it, we have campaigned, and we are talking about our manifesto and what we want to do. We should be given that level playing field, just like men. And what I was asking in my situation is that I am not begging. I'm asking, I've come out to play out like everyone else, so that we do not have only nominated members, but also elected members, because when a woman or two is in that seat, then she can help in legislation that will come to protect this young girl, this young generation, this youth. Because we are not saying about, if a woman goes out there, she's not only going to fight for only girls, but for the next generation. the youth,
Exactly.
you
You
know?
know, this, yeah, I mean, Caroline, you said something that I've been thinking but not wanting to admit, that Kenya just doesn't like women. Like, we're always hearing about, there's so much femicide going on, women being killed left, right, and center, no justice, and now even we can't even get onto the ballot. I think one of our last guests was so frustrated because she had, started off. When she decided she was going to go for the MCA post, she embraced the party. She walked through her constituency, collecting, supporters one by one. And when it came to primary negotiations, she was negotiated out. And she was so frustrated because she said, I single-handedly walked and got support for this party. I got the support that this party is experiencing in my constituencies because of me. And yet, as soon as primaries come up, they're giving it to somebody else, to another man in the constituency. And I'm just, at this. So I have that story from our last show on one hand, and then on the other hand, I'm seeing the parties paying a lawyer to go to court to now say, oh, this two-thirds law is draconian. And I'm like, how is it draconian? You have women who are vying. There are women who are putting in their their aspirations. They're putting themselves on the line. So why don't you have women candidates? I mean, it's not even such a big threshold. Two-thirds is not a big threshold. Why are we struggling so much with women in representative politics? Any thoughts?
I think it's politics has kind of been billed or labeled or treated as an old boys club. So even if you're young, you still need the endorsement, the approval, the whatever of the old boys club. It's not for newcomers. Who are you? How dare you? Just So right now the attitude could just be, how dare you women? Who do you? You woman. What do you think you're coming here to say? I think the other thing is that I think this the whole issue around women should campaign legitimately and what have you, it has merit. But as you're talking about the lady last year, in the last week's program, even when they do win, even when they can win, they're compromised out of the position for them to actually go there and perform. But I think the other thing is, I think there's no real understanding of the impact of women on politics. If you actually look, I mean, wherever they've seen an increase in women, quality of life in political leadership or in other leadership. So if it's in business, private sector, whatever it is, the operations of the business tend to run better, the integrity is better, all those things are better. In terms of political leadership, the quality of life in those countries or in those communities improves. So whether it is a Germany or a Botswana or a Namibia or a Ghana or a Uganda right here, Rwanda, and proof of it is the COVID epidemic. The countries that managed the epidemic the best were led by women, whether it is New Zealand or Germany or wherever it was, it's and to a certain extent it could be because quality of life issues are quote unquote women issues, health, education, getting on with the neighbors, the whatever it is, so that those are priority areas for women. Whereas for men, it could be more about bluster and look at me, look at this thing I've built and what have you.
Right.
But the reality is, I think there's been no real demonstration or understanding or education around the positive, how drastically better things are in community where women are an integral part and a visible part and a welcome part of leadership.
Yeah, yeah. Which is, I mean, and it shocks me sometimes because if mostly in East Africa, Kenya is considered to be like the best of the six
Yeah.
countries in the region in terms of our level of development. I remember the other day I was flying from Nairobi to Kampala, where I'm based, and after all the fabulous highways in Nairobi, Some Ugandans descend from the plane and they're like, we're back to our tuk-tuk. And I thought it was hilarious. And yet our tuk-tuk has the lowest number of women represented in politics or in political bodies. How is that even possible? Like, how are these two things happening side by side? I don't know. Edna, if you have any thoughts.
You know, it is quite ironical when you think about it, right? Because we are the epitome of development, so to say, speak in East Africa. But
Yeah.
look at, for instance, in Rwanda, they have like 50%, if not 60, of parliamentarians who are women. And look how progressive they have become. They're progressing so well, and they have that respect for gender, and things are going. And actually, that country, they are really progressing very. When you look at the things they do and how they have progressed, you admire it. We are only lucky to be where we are geographically and how we have grown as a democracy, because this is the country where you can stand out and speak out to the presidents, and speak out to leadership, and and you have that freedom of speech, unlike
Yeah.
other countries. But ironically, then, when it comes to women, chauvinism plays a role. Discrimination is top notch, that women have to just, they really have to struggle to prove that they can make it, and you really have to go a double, like what a man does, you have to go triple mileage of proving that you can do even half what they can do. Yet you have the capability, you
Yeah.
have the brains, you have all that it takes to be a leader. But the society, then today, was it today? Yesterday, I had a meeting with a male leader, and and and, um, and he was telling me, like, Edna, I'm so sorry. Unfortunately, like in your case, I've had a number of women who are against you, and I don't know why you women are still, you still are a woman's enemy. And I've been trying to run away from this in my mind, being a gender expert, and being pro women, pro woman. Like, that is everything that I do. I see a woman doing something somewhere, I want to support her. I see a woman in a situation, like, I just want to be part of her growth if I can,
Right.
within,
Right.
but I don't understand why. Then is it, I was trying to run away from this reality and saying maybe it's a narrative that men are driving to make us feel like we're enemies of the other. I do not want to entertain the thought that my fellow women will want me down, but unfortunately, that is it. And now, this discrimination, we have impunity, that something can happen to you, even when it comes to violence, and you go to the police station to report, and they're like, where will you go? Like, they question you back, like you deserved what you got. So it's the society we are in. And I wish that Kenya embraced women, embraced us, and supported us.
We're more than 50% of the population, for crying out loud.
Exactly.
That's half a country. We're half the country,
Far,
basically.
our economy and everything else will be up there. You understand? Because in as much as we're in this situation, we still wake up and toil and moil and do our businesses, go for loans, we do business, we do ABC, we go to school. You see somebody as the other day I was watching women who have gone back to school even after dropping out and having children, and they have the zeal, they still want to learn. And I mean, it tells you how much women are resilient, how much they want to, to be economically empowered. All we need is support from our government, support, you know, through the policies that are in place to allow
Absolutely.
us to be part of this growing economy. And because we have been known to be a weak gender, then all we need is a little boost, and then all shall be well. Because look how peaceful Rwanda is in terms of having an inclusive government. They are doing very well. They're supporting women, and women are growing. You know, but
I
here
mean,
we are. Here we are. We're fighting our own women, even when they have fronted themselves into leadership positions.
yeah. I
Women are
think,
now leading.
yeah. I think because I always say that we are what's the keepers of society. We are the ones who transmit the mores or the morals or the beliefs of society at the moment to the next generation because of our carer role. And so when a society is built in a certain way, that way is the way that we're going to be very good at passing on and entrenching, which is unfortunate because I don't think that where Kenya is a good place. I think we got our 2010 constitution because of some of these issues around, exclusion and discrimination. And there is a very good reason why the constitution said that two-thirds of any gender must be, or rather any elective or appointed body should not have more than two-thirds of one gender, because there was a realization that, the root of the post-election violence that we suffered as a country, the root of the intergenerational conflict, trauma that we faced as a country is based on inequality. And I don't know how to translate this in a way that makes sense to the political parties who are trying to say that, they can't make the gender list, or to the police officers who are not protecting women who are vying for office. I don't know how to translate this. I don't know how people understand that the future of our country is at stake if we're not able to ensure equality for all citizens, not just for some, not just for the boys' club, as you said. And maybe in the last couple of minutes before we go, first I'd like to, encourage people to join the conversation. Let's talk. I think for me, I think talking is the beginning of understanding. I have a lot of friends who keep telling me that, oh, why do we have women's rep? It's just a waste of resources because anyway, they don't do anything for women. And I'm like, no, I want to see a woman up there who's holding power. I want my daughter to see a woman up there holding power. It's not about, when men occupy political positions and they don't do anything and nobody says that that man that position should be abolished. And so what is it, where are we failing to translate the critical importance of equality to the people who need to hear it? I don't know. But maybe as you maybe give me your thoughts about that, on how do we get people to understand how important equality is. Also, what would you say? I mean, this show has been all about the challenges that any woman standing for elective office will face. But do you have any other advice for maybe an Achieng out there who's thinking, I might decide to ditch human rights for 2 minutes and jump into politics? Do you have any advice for people who may be watching and thinking of throwing their hat in as well?
Okay, for me, let me say, because I want to jump out in a few minutes. I want to agree with you that the 2010 constitution that we have came in so that we have so many reforms that are yet to be implemented. Inequality is one of the the issue that still has not been addressed, and those are the things that are dragging us behind as a country. Unfortunately, I don't know whether any of you watched this clip where our Miss Martha Karua was being interviewed in someone radio station, where a radio presenter asked her, "Do you think that Kenya is ready for a female deputy president?" And I looked at this, that it's very unfortunate that even in media, a media person can ask such a question, meaning that, okay, fine, much as he wanted some clarification, it's demeaning. And I liked her answer when she asked whether where did Kenyans meet and agree that they should
Yeah.
have non-performing or bad leadership because it has to be a man? You understand? So the
At least
sooner
I didn't attend that baraza. I didn't attend that. I was not invited for that
you
particular meeting.
the sooner we woke up from our our slumberland that it only has to be man, the better we can be, because again we can. Yes, we can. Look at America. For the longest, it was a turning point when they had a black president and a black first lady. Now they're coming around to accept, like, what, it can happen. Yes, it can happen anytime. So we need to embrace humankind as we are. We are all equal. That is we need to accept that, really, that we are all equal. The moment we accept that, we'll accept a woman as a leader, because we can. And women have done even better jobs. Look at how mother has come. When she was the minister for constitutional affairs that time, when she was in water ministry, you saw how she performed stunning well, and she helped the women. She really came up with transformation. I mean, it's so unfortunate, like, put a man on the same page with a woman, you see the woman still facing serious discrimination. I'm sorry to use this example. Like, we have had in the last 5 years, we have had even for governors who are facing even murder charges and all that, but they still continued with their leadership the entire term. When we had a deputy CJ who had an episode, unfortunately, she was held out of office. She was not able to defend herself. Like, everyone was up in arms, and she was holded out of office. And when you compare that with a murder case, you imagine, like, the stakes are so higher for a woman than they are for a man in the same leadership. So
Yeah.
I need to challenge women. For starters, we need to start with women. Please, women, be your own supporter first and foremost, because tomorrow it can be you who wants to be in this position, not only in leadership, but even in a space and a position in office, a position in your career or something, and you need to be there, but you find people bring you on because of your gender. So we need to start with women. It's what I'm urging women. Let us start with women supporting their own without looking at anything else. Then this narrative will, let's have this conversation. And the more we have this conversation, the more we have people, everyone coming around us and accepting that we can also work. We need leaders who can work for the people. If we have people in public office, we don't look at their gender, we don't look at their sex, their color, where they coming from, but look at them as individuals. If they have the capacity to perform and deliver to in whatever capacity they are in, not because they are women. That is how I can. That's what I can say in my conclusion.
Okay. Caroline, what about you? What do you think? And what advice do you have
Okay.
for anyone watching and being like, politics, politics?
Okay, so the first thing, when you talk about politics, I think sometimes we focus so much on candidates and elected positions, and you don't
Right.
pay attention to the fact that there's other ways that you could be involved in politics that do not mean that you necessarily are standing. So you can be in party politics, where you're actually working very hard to ensure, things like gender representation, to ensure that parties stand for more than just there's an election and money. But so you can be involved in parties, you can be involved in civic education, you can be involved in getting out the vote, you can be involved. There are many ways to be involved in politics. So for some women, maybe if you don't want to start by being a candidate, then find other areas that are of interest to you and that you believe you could have a great impact there. Secondly, I think as women, do not be apologetic about wanting to be a representative and to represent. Reality is we are here. And things cannot work if we are not at the table and we are not heard. So even when you talk about Kenya is developed, that depends on your definition of developed. So yes, we got expressways and highways, but does that mean anything when more than half the population isn't eating every day? Does that mean anything when you can't access healthcare? And that is where some of our neighbors are beating us, that, that starvation, hunger, in Kenya, we're raising money for food again. We don't often hear about it in our neighboring countries. So, what are you calling development? Is it all the flash and the shiny things, or is it actually quality of life? So for Kenya, I believe that it's very nice to have all the flashy things, but we need to make sure that the quality of life is, with this fancy expressway we have from the top, it looks really beautiful. Someone cracked a joke that Nairobi is beautiful if you're a bird. But beneath the expressway, it's a totally different story for most of the people in the city. So really just, don't be apologetic, make sure that we are represented. And with all things in life, for any woman who's interested, one, take the step, but then also understand anything that is of value, anything that is worthwhile in life, anything, it takes hard work. It's not easy, whether it's raising a kid, being in a marriage, a good job. No one gave it to you. It is hard work. So don't try to be lazy or whatever, just be willing to do the hard work. So one, look for the opportunity. It does not have to be a candidate. Two, be willing to do the work. Three, be unashamed and unabashed and just say, I am woman, I am here.
Unapologetically you.
Unapologetically you. I think that is the take home for today. So I have sincere apologies from Susan Moriungi. Susan's internet decided that it was going to do other things today. So she's very grateful. She's sorry she couldn't get back. She kept flashing in and off the show. She's very sorry she couldn't get back. But she wishes both of you all the very best. And thank you for being on this show. It's been,
Thank you.
I really enjoyed the conversations, and I'm rooting for, I'm hoping that things will work out so that we have more women on that ballot this time. And we're not getting excuses, or at least if we get to the point of excuses, let's dissolve parliament. Like, let's do something different.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We've tried, we've pushed, we've tried. Now, I don't know. The courts are not on our side, it seems. And I hope it's not just because Kenyans don't like women, because that would be very sad. Because Kenya is made up of women as well. And we matter, and we're movers and shakers, and we do things and make things happen. And we love, and we strive, and and we suffer any problems in the country just like any other man, or any other person in the country. And so again, thank you. Wonderful guests.
Thank you.
We shall keep in touch. Please, we shall invite you perhaps maybe to another show. Maybe you come in as co-hosts. And let's keep in touch. We will keep progress on developments with your political campaigns and your political careers. Wakili, I hope I'll meet you on the legal streets one of these days.
Sure. You're welcome. My office is in Kilimani, actually. My office is within my ward. So everything on mine is just
I will pass through, and Madam Lukalo, you are the one I'm voting for. So again, I wish you all the best.
all the best.
One vote, 2 votes. I've got 2 votes.
Mine
Yours and mine.
Thank you so much, Karen, for having us. And please, let's remind Kenyans that first and foremost, we women, we are carriers of life. We are the ones who bring forth life. And that is very, very integral. That's very important. So we should not forget to support each other. And of course, I encourage women not to shy away. Step out and step up and do something. Do not shy and say this is meant for men. Step out, because we are in a country that believes in the rule of law, and the law will protect us in the end. So believe in yourself, and also let us have our fellow women, not only women, but men, also believing in us, because we can do it. And this is the time. This is the time.
Indeed, indeed.
Sure.
All right, then. We
Thank
are
you so much.
All right, then. Thank you so much.
Thank
Have a
you. Thank
lovely
you.
day.
Be
Thank
blessed.
you. Thank you for having me.